And once again, we have something that's on the editorial page, but I don't really think that I would classify it as an editorial. It's more like something that fills space, but it is consistent with the editorial policy of the Daily News, which is look to the government to solve your problems. Don't try to work out your problems yourself. That's why we have a government. And it goes like this. Our View grants help program that help our children. The governor's after-school and community care grant program deadline has been extended to March 31, and we encourage all eligible businesses and nonprofits to apply. The program provides up to $100,000 in grant funding for after-school and community care programs targeting youth ages 5 to 13. So far, more than 130 local organizations have received support since the program launched in June 22, according to a news release from Adaloop. These are programs that help our youth in our community. They include Amphibious Guam, which provides health and safety programs for youth. Amphibious Guam for youth? I thought maybe that would be for the manatees or the wannabes, or certainly not the wallabies, right?
Not the wallabies.
Yeah. And then there's Junior Achievement, which provides entrepreneurship experiences. The Guam Conservatory of the Arts, which supports providing professional level training to those wanting to learn classical art. These are programs that help the youngsters develop mentally, physically, and emotionally. They also help working families by providing a safe, healthy environment for children, since that won't be available in the schools. Yeah. Amphibious Guam Director Andy Lee said the support the organization received from the grant is not only developing youth water confidence and conditioning, but also supporting other small businesses and increasing youth engagement with local subject matter experts to introduce them to yoga, meditation, study skills, strength training, and more. I thought maybe I'd see the word transgender in there, and that's some transgenderism, but it wasn't there. We have to be able to engage coaches and community partners, including INA Wellness Collective, the Bridge Fitness, Buckeye Industries, FAS Care, the Pacific Islands Club, and local educators committed to helping our participants develop physical and mental wellness, as well as technique and skills in the water, in the classroom, and in our community, Lee said. The governor's community care and after-school programs are administered through Programan y Pinalan y Famagoan Guahan. That's where we go out and moon the children. The goal of the program is to make child care more affordable and accessible for working families by providing additional support to child care providers, local businesses, and nonprofits. These grant funds must be used by September 30, according to information on the Guam Economic Development Authority website. Funding can be used to cover personnel costs, rent, utilities, facilities maintenance, insurance, personal protective equipment, supplies, goods, services, or mental services. And then there's a phone number and a website, etc. So it's just another news story is all it is, masquerading as an editorial on the editorial page. Okay, so much for Demi Cotney. It's I should say it's another disappointment, but I shouldn't be disappointed.
Expected.
Yeah, it's once in a great while they run a real editorial, but it doesn't happen very often. Are we on Facebook now, Jose?
Yes, we are. I think a refresh is in order.
It's funny, my desktop doesn't know I'm on Facebook, nor does my iPad. My desktop thinks it's still time for the Ray Gibson show. Okay, let's take a peek at the card. I'm not going to go into the idea of make Guam great again. Just that I try to do it, and I try to encourage others to do it every day. And it's not something that you should be denigrated for, like Robert Under said, oh, make Guam great again, just like Donald Trump. No, we've had our ups and downs. We just came off a long downer, and it's time to get back up to where we belong by making Guam great again. I don't have anything on the Public Law 36-34 file. First item on the card is Chris versus the governor. That was the front page story on the Post. And then I've got more Alice Tyrone versus Henry Simpson. Yeah, you may want to clear your ears before I get into that because, as you go up higher in altitude, you have to clear your ears way up there in the net. Well,
It's virtually Colorado.
Yeah. And then I've got Roundtable versus DOE, Tom Pool versus cockfighting, research versus masks. I've got more on Troy versus the TV stations and the newspapers. It looks like the Post has finally gotten into the game. It's about time. And then I've got the Consigliere versus Doug. I've got Fernando versus Troy and Doug. And I've got the government versus the First Amendment. This is from Turley. So, I got a couple. I'm not going to cover research versus masks today. I just didn't put the calendar correctly today. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can find Facebook here. No Facebook. Am I doing something wrong, Jose?
I don't know. Should be in there.
Well, I've refreshed a couple of times, and it refreshes right back to Ray Gibson. Okay, so be it. It just means that I won't be able to pay attention to your comments until Facebook finally gets with the program. And I really do appreciate comments from tailgaters. So pop them up there. I'm sure that sooner or later Facebook will come to life. First item on the card, of course, is systemic racism. And I haven't heard anything from Carmen and Frank Tenorio in Vegas. And they've opened a new restaurant in Vegas called Red Rice. And it would really be nice if Carmen and Frank would ping us here at Tall Tales because we'd like to help them out with their restaurant. And we could make a lot of conversation about the title of their restaurant, Red Rice. We probably are more critical of Red Rice than we are of the government. No, not quite. All right, so systemic racism. And then we go to Chris versus the governor. And here's how the Daily News covered it. Selfish acts. Duane is critical of raises announced by governor. Bills may block 22% adjustment. Senator Quistoranius has introduced two bills to address the selfish acts of the governor in her approval of a 22% increase in the pay structure for GovGuam employees under the general pay plan. One measure, Bill 31, named an act to end the governor's cart before the horse approach to pay raises and restore the legislature's power of the purse, requires that no salary adjustment can be paid out unless it's included in annual budget laws. Now, I just want to stop here for a little explanation before I go through the rest of the story. What Chris's bill says is this: if there's going to be a pay raise for government employees, it has to be part of the governor's submission. I want to raise this category of employees this amount of money. And that would be in the administrative provisions, and then perhaps a cross-reference back to the budgeted section showing that there's enough money, not a separate appropriation, But when it comes time for explanations, the governor's fiscal folks can say, well, the total appropriation for the government is this much, and we factored in X million dollars to cover the raises provided for in the administrative provisions. That's the sensible way to do it.
The budget includes the salaries of directors, so why not?
Yeah. So what the governor did this time, she came along and asserted the authority to raise the salaries. She did that on January 31. And she said the salary increases take place on April 1. Well, that's before the budget is signed into law. And so what she's doing is she's playing budgetary chicken with the legislature again. So April 1 comes along and teachers don't get their raises, or government employees don't get their raises. Who are they going to blame? The legislature. The governor gave them raises and the legislature screwed us out of it. Pawn to king 4, right? Yeah. So the governor's right out there on the chessboard. She's trying to, instead of move the rook the way rooks usually move, she's trying to castle so she can line her rooks up here and avoid the defensive movements of the chess player on the other side. That's exactly what she's doing. And Chris is saying, no, you got to stop doing that. From now on, we're going to pass this law, and salary increases for the government will be tied to the budgetary process. And going on with the article here, the other bill, 32, appropriates $30 million to the Department of Education for school infrastructure and maintenance. Duenas, in a press release, referenced recent news stories on the dilapidated state of schools and how pay raises to teachers and administrators in 2022 used American Rescue Plan funds initially intended for capital improvements for the Department of Education. So she got this ARP money, which was meant to fix the schools, and instead of using it for that, she used it for the salary, budgetary salary mousetrap. She put the raises in place knowing that the ARP money would only last down to September 30, and that the legislature then would have to appropriate from local funds to cover the next year from October 1st on. Bill 32 is intended to restore the ARP money spent on raises with local funds. The measure's intent states projected excess fiscal year 2023 general revenues would be better spent on schools than on government salaries. Now, everybody on the entire island would agree with that, except for guess who? Government employees. Yeah. And of course, we come back to the old conventional political wisdom. There are 11,000 government employees. They are the largest block of voters on the island. If you want to be reelected, you better make sure you pander to the government employees or you ain't going to make it. Now, I think that I don't think that is sound reasoning, because there are 3 times as many, there are 33,000 people in the private sector as in the government sector, and I suspect an awful lot of people in the private sector are just sick of this pandering to government employees. Yeah, our schools are falling apart, but we got to give the government employees a big raise. Yeah, we're all stuck with a pandemic. A lot of us got laid off. Government employees had to stay home from work, but they still got paid. Nice job. And then the legislature was tripping over itself to make sure that everybody who actually worked instead of staying home got double pay. Remember that? So very clearly I remember. I suspect that an awful lot of folks out in the private sector are saying, I'm waiting for the guy who comes along and said, to hell with the government employees. I'm going to be a senator for all the people, certainly people in the private sector. Anyhow.
Not in the 36.
No, not this time around.
No, they assumed that they were there for Adelup.
Exactly. And of course, this is the key to the part-time legislature. If it's not your fundamental means of support, if you have a career, a job, a skill, like let's say you're a barber, right? If you're a barber during the time the legislature is in session, you don't cut hair. You go to the legislature. And the way I see it, a couple 30-day sessions a year, during those 30-day sessions, you go into panic overdrive and you cover both of them. And then the rest of the year, you go back to being a barber. And if you happen to not get reelected, it's not the end of the world because you're still a barber or a plumber or whatever, even a taxi driver. If you can make a living, then being reelected is not going to be the end of your world, like it is for some folks in the legislature who can't regel when they decide not to run, which means pick up a lofty position.
But why would you run if you already have a what do they call it, a firm position already? There is no reason to run.
A firm position?
What's the word called when you've already confirmed that you're going to have a position?
Afterwards.
Yeah, before running.
Oh,
And that
go ahead and
assume,
run. And if you don't win, Roy Gamboa, go ahead and run. And if you don't win, you stick around for a couple more weeks at
secure. That's what I'm talking about. Secured positions.
Yeah, and then go ahead and run. And if you don't make it, we'll give you a deputy director position. Yeah, right. But it's the exact opposite for people in the private sector. Now, one of the arguments is, well, if you're in the private sector, you can't afford to run. The money that you get for being a senator is not for your campaign. If you're not a senator now and you want to run, you got to raise your own campaign funds. It's only after you're in office that you're so before you're in office, everybody starts on the same footing. You have to pay for your campaign with your own money. So that's a bogus argument.
And it's not about, only the big business people can afford to get into politics, and that's a reason why we don't have a part-time. Well, all I have to do is point at Adelup and say you're not following your own arguments.
Exactly. So if we had a part-time legislature, there'd be a whole lot more empathy with the private sector and much less tendency to tie your wagon to the government star. So going on with this article, Bill 32 is intended to restore the ARP money spent on raises with local funds. The measure's intent states projected excess fiscal year 2023 general fund revenues would be better spent on schools than on government salaries. I agree. Investing heavily into pay raises before making major reforms is a mistake, Duane has stated in the release. The Republican lawmaker said pay adjustments for government employees should always be considered. But at what cost does this 22% pay raise cost us, our people? Government employees' children attend our public schools, seek care at our public hospital, and require the same government services to provide an island that is clean, safe, and healthy, which we don't have. It's neither clean, safe, nor healthy. This is why I introduced two bills to help navigate this process, Duane has added. The educator pay raises last fiscal year were implemented outside the parameters set by the legislature in the fiscal 2022 Budget Act, which required implementation to be on June 30, 2023, unless disapproved. Despite concerns about the implementation from certain senators, including Duenas, the educator pay plan and its updated pay adjustments were adopted into the fiscal 2023 budget law, along with changes to account for pay increases, ensuring that pay increases would carry on into this fiscal year and forward. DOE officials told lawmakers last year that capital improvement projects would be addressed despite the reprogramming of ARP funds. I think maybe they had their hands behind their back and their fingers were crossed. Yeah. The educator pay raises had been the latest in a series of updates to the government pay plans pursued by the governor's administration. On January 31, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero approved a 22% increase to the government of Guam general pay plan structure as recommended by the Department of Administration. The GPP adjustment is intended to help bring pay and associated compensation closer to alignment with market data. I just don't see that, Jose. I don't think you'll find any group of people in the private sector who do the same kind of work that are compensated. Compare bus drivers. Compare the guys that drive the bus drivers down in San Vittori's to government employees. Government employees make more than twice as much.
Plus, with security of a job,
yeah.
I mean, how many people get fired for doing stuff that are destructive to their positions?
Yeah,
they don't.
It was almost a federal case to fire the lady who wouldn't put the kid back on the bus after she dropped him at the wrong place.
Any private industry should be gone.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. In order to fund the adjustments in the current year, Leon Guerrero has submitted a legislation appropriating $16 million from the government's general fund. According to the bill, the raises are intended to go into effect April 1. So there you go. Chris Duenas has said, we don't give us any more of this salary mousetrap thing. Don't try to coerce us into doing something that it will make you very popular and is going to cost us political capital with the government of Guam labor force. Good for Chris. I'm glad you're standing up, Chris.
You know, it's amazing how it's so easy to be woke to emotional issues, but when it comes to fiscal and logic, people actually, I think, want to be blinded.
Yeah. It's much easier to think in terms of being empathetic to the poor government employees and remember that your uncle works for the government and stuff like that. But I got to applaud Chris. You know, Chris, it's the old saying is, and this is going a little over the top, but the old saying is, better to live on your feet than die on your knees. And that's what the governor is attempting to do. She's attempting to coerce you into doing something that you and everybody who with a functioning brain housing group in the legislature knows is a bad, bad idea. Okay, next on the card, let's take a short break and then we'll come to Alice Tyheron versus Henry Simpson.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management, the number 647-5003, or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, I'm looking in the green room here, and I've got somebody who's going to come online who's going to tell me, Bob, you don't know what you're talking about. Thank goodness the governor's looking out for government employees. She sticks up for the little guy. You're just dead wrong, Bob. Is that what you called to say, Ken?
Actually, no. I'm calling to say that with this pay raise, the 2026 gubernatorial campaign has started in full earnest. And what we're going to see between now and 2026 is an endless parade of gratuitous and consensus building and obligation building gifts to the largest employee block on the island. And this is just the first. Remember, when she got elected and took office in 2019, one of her first acts was a series of massive pay raises to all the exempt employees across the board. So this time she's repeating the effort, starting the, we hear the whispering campaign that Josh is going to run in 2026. And so they're just, laying the groundwork right now to buy the election on the backs of taxpayers.
Shouldn't she be fronting Josh a little bit more in this effort, Ken?
There's blowback on this because what's going to happen is business owners and non-government employees are going to be upset, and Lou is going to take the rap for that, so that tainted with it in the same way that Ray Tenorio got tainted with the pay raises back in 2014.
The one Pat 10 pay raises.
So it's a very careful plan here. I am going to do all the things that are going to be upsetting to the community at large, but in the process will invoke the goodwill of the government employees, because after the campaign starts in proper, Josh will be able to talk about how our administration gave you pay raises way back when, after all the blowback has been dealt with and, burned out and forgotten by that point in time. So it's actually a pretty shrewd tactic. We're going to do this. We're going to do a bunch of other things that are going to be politically unpopular for the non-government employees and for the business community at this point in time. It's time for the election. 4 years will have gone by, and we will have forgotten all these things that really weren't in the best interest of all taxpayers and citizens of Guam in general. And yet, when it comes time to campaign, Josh will take credit for being part of the decision-making process that made your lives better. Whereas, the part that we had to keep the 5% in place, we had to reinstate the temporary suspension of the 1 million or more, and we had to add a few new fees and taxes. And next round, we're going to raise the property taxes so we can raise the debt ceiling, we can raise the borrowing limit, and we can do a bunch of strategic borrowings that, create big, massive projects like, a new hospital out where nobody wants one. Things like that to win back the favor of the business community. So it's all very calculated.
Makes a lot of sense, Ken. The beginning of the 2026 election campaign, that's pretty perceptive. I think you got something there. Thanks a lot for sharing that with us.
And we need to stop referring to it as the legislature. We need to refer to it as the third adelature.
The adelature.
Yeah, because what we've got here is we've got a group of senators who have bent and kissed the ring of the Red Queen. And, no matter what common sense for, like Bill 13, for example. Bill 13 will probably pass, but it won't pass by 10 votes. And Lou will see to that. So that when she vetoes it, efforts to strengthen open government law will fail. Efforts to strengthen the Sunshine Act will fail because we have a group of senators who will not support the people.
Good.
Bill 13 comes up for a vote.
Yeah, that's the one that provides open government coverage for her hospital committee, right?
That we had to, that shows how bad things are in this administration, that we had to take the open government law and specifically put a project, a department, and individuals into it by name, because the tendency of this administration is to say, well, it doesn't apply to us.
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act, I got pages and pages of documentation that I'm turning into the Speaker's office as part of my testimony, where basically we have various department heads and councils of different autonomous agencies say, well, you don't have to do that. The Open Government Law and Sunshine Act do not apply in these cases. And if you come to our office again, we're going to have you arrested again.
Yeah.
Words to that effect.
Right.
So that's why when I opened my testimony at the hearing on Bill 13, I read that quote from Thomas Jefferson, where over 230 years ago, he warned the American people that if we don't remain vigilant, elected officials and their followers will enrich themselves at our expense unless we hold them accountable. Well, this administration and the Adelature are working hard to weaken the tools that we have. We only have two: Open Government Law, Freedom of Information Act. Those are the only two tools available to citizens to hold the government accountable, and they're doing everything they can to weaken them. Thank God we've got an ally in an attorney general that believes that his first loyalty is to the people that elected him.
Yeah, well, Ken, you made a lot of really good points, so you got my day off to a good start. Thank you very much.
You listening, Judge?
So long. Yeah, Ken got at least hit for extra bases there. I think the ball hit the center field wall. It was just about a home run. Okay, moving on to the next item on the card, we've got Alice Tyrone versus Henry Simpson. And we got a story in the Post by Matt Weiss, who did an excellent job of shedding some light on what the hell is going on there. And at the appropriate time here, Jose's done a little research himself on one of the areas of his expertise.
Asking questions.
So here we go. When Public Law 25-27 was signed into law by then Governor Carl Gutierrez, the Guam Racing Federation was granted authority to begin developing property in Jigo, and it was off to the races. Nice turn of phrase, right? The law, which was introduced to the legislature as Bill 145, created a 21-year lease between the Racing Federation and the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. The lease expired in 2019, and CLTC issued the Federation a tentative month-to-month holdover tenancy, a de facto lease extension. On January 30, 2023, the CLTC effectively terminated the holdover tenancy and issued the Federation a 30-day eviction letter. On January 19th, during a CLTC board meeting, CLTC's then counsel, Nicholas Toft, provided several possible reasons for the eviction. He cited that the lease agreement, which he alleged was born out of requests by members of the racing community at a public hearing, and cited senators at the time to pass a bill that Toft called unworkable. They parade 100 people around the legislative hearing hall in support of the commercial lease. And then they pass a bill that is completely unworkable and said to us, and we look like we can't do anything because there's a bill that the Raceway is unwilling to sign. We're unwilling to sign, and we're back to square one. I don't understand how Toft would think that the legislature has to sign a bill. I think maybe what he meant was a lease. that the raceway was designed.
Is Toff running for office somewhere? He's the legal advisor.
Yeah.
But everything he said wasn't legal. It was emotion based.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's part of it is, yeah. You're thinking maybe he wants to be a politician, huh? Toft also said the agreement was not enacted under the Commission's process to lease CLTC lands to commercial ventures. We have no leases that use our current commercial rules because they're unworkable, he added. That's a legislative lease that was created by the legislature, not the CLTC. It was imposed upon the CLTC. Now, I've picked this up before. We call it the Chamorro Land Trust, but it's nothing. It's not a trust, not even close to a trust, because a trust, the reason that people set up trusts is because they're ironclad. It's very difficult to, if you'll pardon the expression, bust a trust. So if it really is a trust, and the commission, not the board of commissioners, but the commission are the trustees of the trust, then the trustees govern the corpus of the trust. The corpus means the property of the trust. And you can't pass laws that change the settler's intent when the trust was created. So it's not a trust. You might as well call it a hippopotamus, a Chamorro land hippopotamus, because if it were, I wouldn't be talking about this bill 2527. Toft also said the agreement, as you were.
Public law.
Yeah. The legislative lease was created by the legislature, not the CLTC. It was imposed upon the CLTC, and that's a fact, Jose. That's true.
That I like.
Not without precedent, Toft said. The CLTC monitors a few such, quote, public purpose leases that don't necessarily benefit the CLTC beneficiaries. And once again, that's why you have a trust. A trust benefits the beneficiaries. It doesn't benefit third parties. And you know, the way people beneficiaries enforce that, if the trustee starts dealing with the property outside the boundaries of the trust, beneficiaries sue the trustee and they can have him removed and replaced. But we don't have a trust. There are a few such public purpose leases that don't benefit the CLT's beneficiaries. These include one for a golf course and another for a recycling center. Although the raceway benefits the island, the lease is contrary to the CLTC mission, commissioners said. A few tenets of the mission statement are, 1, to maintain and effectively manage the destiny of all public lands considering the social and economic factors, to ensure all government lands are registered, monitored, and protected, to supervise the operation of the department's legal mandates, to develop an effective system of operation towards high performance standards in order to promote and provide better satisfactory services to the public, and to ensure the highest and best use of all Chamorro Land Trust lands. Toft said he feels that using the land as a raceway is not in the Commission's or in the island's best interest. CLTC has been put as a steward of these leases, and it's kind of a difficult position for us because the board is not supposed to be doing things for the entirety of Guam. We're supposed to be working for our beneficiaries. That's the lessees. For the more than 2 decades, Guam Racing Federation has been paying the CLTC monthly payments for the use of a vast expanse of land. The minimal amount of these payments, among other issues, appears to be a source of contention. Where are we today? CLTC Commissioner David Herrera asked during the January 19th meeting. We're getting paid $4,000 a month for the 250-acre gold mine. The gold mine I'm talking about is the white gold that's under that property, added Herrera, referring to coral, which Guam Raceway Federation is allegedly mining or allowing a contractor to dig up, and has allegedly been doing so for profiting from for several years. Now, if you drive up God's Narrow Road, where junctions with 15, you see this hillside has been...
Oh, that includes the raceway land?
Well, does it?
Oh.
Mr. Questions. That was my first question when I first saw it. Is this part of the raceway?
I thought that was a private company doing that.
Well, you know... No, David Herrera doesn't think so. Herrera also said he's concerned that the tenant is damaging the property. That's the major issue that I personally saw. I know that there is quarry operation that was done. A quarry operation, not a clearing and grading. That's a fact. That's what David Herrera said. Tom said CLTC and GRF have different understandings of the level of excavation granted by the legislature. What we're running into is that their definition of clearing and grading is closer to strip mining versus our definition, which is knock the trees down and prepare it for your race pass, Toff said. He also said CLTC would like the legislature to provide clarification on the matter. Well, he's making sense down to here. That is a big mistake. As Google Earth image shows what appears to be a section of the property near the far end of the drag strip, referenced by Herrera. Although low quality, the image seems to depict a sizable excavation undertaking with several tractors and dump trucks among bare land. I've been trying to get into the property to get a more accurate configuration of the quarry area of the property, and we're having a hard time even getting through the gate, Herrera said in the commission meeting. Herrera, who agreed the Federation should be kicked off the property, also wanted to take legal action. I agree with the commissioner for eviction notice. The commissioner, does he mean the director? But I would like to file a claim for damage to that property. There's some major damage, and in my opinion, we've been exploited. The commission has been exploited. Herrera said he learned the Racing Federation allegedly entered into a sublease with Smith Bridge, creating an easement to gain access to the property, a violation of the law's no leases provision. In no, quote, in no case shall the Raceway Park or any portion of its property or assets be leased, licensed, or assigned without the prior express written approval of CLTC. That's what the public law says. Toft alleged the Racing Federation is getting money directly from Smith Bridge and CLTC had not been informed. I'm guessing that it's a violation of the lease terms. We're supposed to know about all subleases. Saying the land could be used for more lucrative endeavors, Tom said the multi-acre expanse of land could be used for housing for CLTC residents, for commercial leases that pay a full amount so that we can use that for infrastructure and things like that. Apart from a better land deal, Toft is in no uncertain terms said the Racing Federation has been a bad tenant, not living up to its end of the holdover tenancy agreement. In short, he alleged that the Federation is not paying its fair share. We're supposed to get participation rents for events that happen on the property, and we've had instances where we know that there's an event going on and they have to they have a take at the gate or whatever, and we don't see it unless we specifically hound them and have to basically do legal discovery to pry it out of them, Toff said. In a letter from Senator Won't Parkinson to Speaker Telahi, dated February 6th, the freshman senator, in support of the Racing Federation, addressed the need for more information and community input. I am respectfully requesting the Committee on Health, Justice, and Land, which has oversight of the CLTC, hold a roundtable hearing with the relevant stakeholders. Well, here we go.
Wrong.
The relevant stakeholders. He should sit down with his partner, Jesse Lujan.
I'm not understanding why community input is needed. I understand there's high emotions right now,
Yeah.
but there's specific law and of the use of what CLTC land is supposed to be used for. That's all that needs to be discussed.
And
I'm seeing a different light now in this story.
yeah. So anyhow, Watt is asking for the roundtable to set the record straight with the public as to the cause of this eviction and solutions to help ameliorate the situation for all involved. Can't we all just get along?
I need a dictionary.
Yeah. Now let's suppose that one of the parties is dead wrong, and the other side is 100%. We've got to make it work. Anaphemolic, right? We've got to make it work out for everybody, right? Won't Parkinson warn Tetlaya the possible effects of the raceway's closure? I firmly believe, he doesn't just believe.
Firmly.
I firmly believe that the raceway serves in the public interest. Well, that's exactly what Toff says is wrong. It's not supposed to serve in the public interest. It's supposed to serve in the beneficiary's interest, the lessee's issues. Providing a venue for car clubs and car enthusiasts to gather, race, and enjoy their vehicles in a safe environment. The loss of the Guam International Raceway lease to their Jigo home deals a devastating blow to car and race enthusiasts throughout the island and the region. Where was he when the governor was plowing up the baseball diamond down at the Paseo?
Right?
Yeah.
This is, man, legislators, lawmakers, what kind of rhetoric comes out of a lawmaker's mouth when it just doesn't want to talk about the law, just want to talk about the feelings?
And he doesn't even know.
Doesn't even know the law.
Yeah, he says he tells the speaker we got to find out what's going on here. So it's a classic case of Won't Parkinson went to the rifle range and he used this set of command: ready, fire, aim. In the January 19th CLTC meeting, Toft, who has since resigned from the office of the AG, said, "We've done this dance repeatedly, and if it takes closing it down to get the message to the legislature to actually send us functional help, maybe that's what we need to do." Now, I got to stop here. Now, you don't need the legislature to enforce your legal rights. If the term of the lease is ended, then somebody, either the board or the executive director or the director at the direction of the board, terminates the lease. You don't need the legislature to do that. All you're going to do is wake up the Won't Parkinsons, who will see it as their mission to save the White Raceway Park. And they'll take a bad situation and make it even worse. You can bet on that. In the GRF press release dated 1, the nonprofit organization pleaded for help. "We're seeking the support of the community in the fight to keep the track open," GRF stated. Petition forms will be available at the remaining scheduled races this month and at Cars Plus in Mighty, with additional locations announced shortly. For more information, please visit our website. The Racing Federation also said it's hosting a wave at the ITC intersection Thursday and urges the community to join in the mission to save the track. Now, way back at the beginning of this article, Toff said, they parade 100 people around the legislative hearing hall in support of their commercial lease. It's like we're going to have a repeat performance. Are we going to break for the big halftime show?
Yeah, probably about 30 seconds or so.
Okay, we got to go to Wrigley or the break first.
Yeah.
Okay.
always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003 or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Okay, so we just got a couple minutes here before the halftime show. Let me just, I want to give Jose a little time the show to demonstrate his expertise asking questions, right?
Well, the question was just really quick. When
Let's hold on until after the halftime.
Oh, after? Okay, very good.
Yeah. I want to give you enough time, Jose. So I'm looking at Facebook here, and I don't see anything particularly punchy on Facebook this afternoon. You see anything, Jose?
Couple of things, but I think there's a good discussion on the raceway is going to be coming up soon.
Okay. I hear music. Okay. Let's take a short break here for the halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Some raucous moments. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. In President Biden's State of the Union message, Republicans speaking up about the border when the president mentioned the dramatic increase in fentanyl deaths.
Fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans a year. You got it.
A similar reaction when the president suggested some in the GOP want to cut Social Security and Medicare, something which Republican leadership has vehemently denied. President called for Republicans to work with him on economic recovery and said, despite the pandemic and economic woes, America is unbowed and unbroken. Arkansas's Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders very critical of the president and the GOP's response to the speech.
Being a mom to 3 young children taught me not to believe every story I hear. So forgive me for not believing much of anything I heard tonight from President Biden.
She blamed the Democrats for what she called trillions in reckless spending and mountains of debt. No mention in the president's speech of the Chinese spy balloon. The Pentagon now scrambling to explain why they didn't sound the alarm about earlier flights.
Based on multiple conversations that I've had in recent days, I've learned that past incursions by suspected Chinese spy balloons were brief. The spy balloons did not loiter when they entered U.S. airspace near Florida, Texas, Hawaii, and Guam. The incidents were logged by the military, but those reports, of which there are sometimes hundreds each day, may not have been flagged for senior officials in this administration or the last until recently. U.S. defense officials tell me the Pentagon began examining them more seriously in the past 4 months after a Chinese spy balloon crashed into the ocean near Hawaii.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. The Navy continues to pick pieces of the Chinese spy balloon from the floor of the Atlantic. America is listening to Fox News.
To the point, anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app, AUDACY.
Looking for a new home or that special place to spend your retirement? Century 21 Realty Management has the place for you. Ladera Towers Condominium in Manila. Luxury living you deserve. Amenities like a gourmet kitchen, a large jacuzzi tub, private lanai with a magnificent ocean view, and 24/7 security. Other amenities, large swimming pool, couple of tennis courts, 3-bedroom condo units are available right now. This is an opportunity you should look at now before they're all gone. Call us now at Century 21 Realty Management, 647-5003, or visit the website, laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
In Turkey, rescuers have pulled a 3-year-old boy alive from the rubble of a collapsed building. But such stories are becoming fewer 2 days since the 7.8 magnitude earthquake. Rescuers getting desperate.
They need oil, they need gas, they need electricity, they need heat. They need it all. They're getting help from the Turkish government, which has declared a state of emergency for the next 3 months for this area, and from the world. 70 different countries sending rescue workers here, including the United States.
Fox's Greg Palcott in southern Turkey reports more than 7,700 people have been killed. The Church of England is reportedly considering changes to remove any references to God's gender from the liturgy. The London Telegraph reports a liturgical commission is suggesting dropping the words he and him in referring to God and doing away with the phrase "Our Father" from the beginning of the Lord's Prayer. The House Oversight Committee, interviewing members of the U.S. Border Patrol in a hearing Tuesday, heard from John Maudlin, the agent in charge of the Tucson sector, who described cartel tactics.
Task saturation is a term we use to describe a tactic where smuggling organizations split large groups of migrants into many smaller groups. These small groups are then directed to illegally cross the border all at once and at different locations, effectively saturating the area with migrants and exhausting our response capability.
Committee Chair James Comer said the state of the border is in crisis. In sports, the NBA has a new all-time leading scorer.
LeBron James, a shot at history. And there it is! LeBron stands alone! The NBA's all-time scoring record now belongs to LeBron James.
The call on TNT as James surpassed the old scoring mark, which had been held by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The Lakers lost to the Thunder, by the way, 133-130. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The SMPT experienced a few mechanical issues on Route 1 during its return to the port. The trailer arrived, made it back around 1:24 p.m. today, and will undergo repairs. The Power on the Move team thank you for your patience and support. Subscribe to poweronthemove.org.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Your services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best.
So here we go, Jose. Another big halftime show here. Tell them how to do it, Jose.
If you want to be included in the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery, just point your browser to thepoint.gu, the official website of this radio station. Click on the T-shirt with the beard. That is a link that will take you to the purveyor. Order your shirt. When it arrives, put that shirt on and take a selfie. And send that selfie to 671-797-8255. That's the official Points WhatsApp phone number. And you, too, can be included in the Rogues Gallery.
That's how it's done. So we got a pretty good article there on what's going on with the Guam Raceway Park up in Jigo, and why allegedly Alice Tyrone told them they had to get out. A very nice job by Matt Weiss. It'd be nice if Matt did more of the writing for that paper.
That's a great article.
Yeah, he really did it. Jose has something that he'd like to add to the whole matter here. Go ahead, Jose.
Well, yeah, like my curiosity is always about asking questions because I like to think I know some things, but I really don't. So I found out. I'm listening, of course, to Tall Tales. It's a course in Guam law and procedure, and the very basic I always go to, but my understanding. And we always talk about Public Law 3634. For the first question I had in my mind is, was this discussion on the agenda? And looking back in the announcements, the meeting was on January 19th. The first announcement was on January 11th, and the second announcement was on January 17th. And yes, the Guam Raceway was on the agenda. So the second question I said was, well, is this kosher with Public Law 3634? And there was a question I asked you, Bob, about language in the law. And in the section of this law, it says that any public agency which holds a meeting is required by statute, regulation, or resolution shall give 5 days working days public notice and a second public notice at least 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. So my question was, does shall give 5 days mean 5 days firm or at least 5 days for the first notice? Because if you listened, I said that the first notice was given on January 11th, which is actually 6 working days. Now, I know that sounds like a technicality, but the law states a certain language on there. The January 17th did fall under the at least 48-hour second notice. So that's the first question I asked.
Let me take a crack at that.
Okay.
All right. First of all, it's unfortunate that the statute uses the phrase working days. Because if you're talking about firemen only have 12 working, that would be a long, long period of time, right? A better way to do it would be to say days, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays excluded, right? But what it comes down to is a week. Unless there's a holiday, and then it's 8 days. And that's the way I keep track of it. So when the statute says, read it one more time, Jose, the 7-day part, or the 4.
It says the agency shall give 5 working days public notice and a second public notice at least 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting.
Yeah. So the question is then, if Henry Simpson's, if it turns out that Tyrone's authority came from the board, and Henry wants to block that, then he'd have to convince the court that when the statute says 4 days, it means no more, no less than 4 days. And of course, courts are usually reluctant to hammer things down. If there are 2 constructions, one of which would allow the government's action to stand, the other of which would strike it, the courts ordinarily prefer the former. Another way to look at it, there is a presumption of regularity that attaches to everything that the government does. So my suspicion is that a court would say, if the statute says 4 days and it turned out to be 5, it's a de minimis distinction. If the statute said 4 days and a notice was given 3 months early, That probably would do it. So somewhere in between there is where it would fall. But, whether or not anyone would sue on this turns on another statute, well, actually on a rule called Rule 11, Rule 11 of the Rules of Civil Procedure, which says that when an attorney signs a paper that's filed with court, any paper filed with court, what he's vouching for is that he has examined the facts and that the facts are sufficient to provide relief in accordance with the law, proposition of law which he asserts. Now, in a case like this, it's not hard and fast. It's arguable that the court would set it aside because it's 5 days rather than 4. So a lawyer would be able to sign and not get dinged with a Rule 11 sanction on this basis. Now, the 48 hours, that's kind of troublesome, isn't it? Because you could give, it says no less than 48 hours. So you could give the first notice on Monday and the second one on Tuesday, and he'd be all set.
And that's the way the language is.
Yeah. So that statute needs to be cleaned up.
There's another one where I guess when you bring up Rule 11, in which where you have the criticisms of not putting none when it comes to new business or old business, because that language is not in there either. But it says it has to be a descriptive agenda.
Yes.
So it could be argued also whether that is descriptive enough or it's not necessary.
Clearly gets you past Rule 11, because if you're going to say new business, you got to tell us what it is. Otherwise, the suspicion is what we always kick around here. They're going to talk about something, but we don't know what it is.
Now, apart from my Wise's article, which is really good, it brought up some more questions to mind over when was it that Alice Tyrone was appointed to directorship? Was this something she was privy of? Were the discussions beyond the meeting about this for her to put in this? She's the one that initiated the quote-unquote eviction, and the commissioners decided to vote yay on it and to allow that to pass. But where was her information, and how did she know about this situation?
Yeah, so
prior to January 19th.
First question, when was Alice Tyrone appointed? Now, that was in the paper. I could go back and look it up. Did you?
I didn't see. I'm going to look specifically, but I didn't see a specific date.
It was the same one where Roy Gamboa was appointed the deputy director of Parks and Rec.
And Clint Rangel was the senior. I can't remember the staff, senior staff.
Deputy chief of staff.
Chief of staff.
Yeah. So it's the same one. So then the next question is, does Alice Tyrone, regardless of when she was appointed, have the authority to do that, or does it require board action? And if it does, the minutes don't. Well, we don't know if we haven't seen the minutes. We don't know if the board took action, right? Yeah. So Henry, rather than organize people to stand out there and wave, you might be a trap past the council, because there aren't any slam dunks here, but there are certainly some issues that you could pursue.
Yeah, a wave is going to get your arm tired.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's not going to change the law.
No, it's not. It's not going to change the law at all. Now, if you're dealing with a bishop, it might work.
Different story.
Yeah, but not with the legislature. So, pretty interesting here. I think when this first came up, your natural tendency is to kind of go with Henry. They kicked him out. What for? And there's no explanation. Just, you got to get out by the end of the month. So that's the kind of thing that people don't like to see.
Now I'm going to have to be a little humble and say, Won't is not incorrect in his sentiments for the raceway.
Yeah.
But it doesn't put anything over the edge.
No.
It doesn't finish anything.
Not at all. And I hear people say this, I heard Senator so-and-so speak on the bill on the floor of the legislature, and she was so passionate. That was just so wonderful. And my analysis, no. I don't want senators governed by passion. If you're going to use your alimentary canal, alimentary, not elementary, If it's something that makes your tummy warm, it's good. If it's something that tightens your anal sphincter, it's bad. If that's the process you want to use, go out and get something to eat. Because I want senators to use their brain housing group. And, Jose, it occurs to me as we're going through this, so much of these questions, the resolution depends on where you start. Now, suppose if we started, where did it go? My well-regulated is not on the card anymore. Let's put it this way. If you start here, what we're interested in is an efficient, effective government operation within the rule of law that provides at least the break-even government service, that provides regular government services on at least a break-even basis. We wouldn't be having this conversation. The government, regular government services is not providing a raceway. So the Chamorro Land Trust, the legislature shouldn't have passed that in the first place.
The golf course and the recycling center included.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in Walt Parkinson's sentiment, if he's seeking the support of the community to fight to keep the track open, then a roundtable is in order, but not at the legislature. Let the private sector, those who have been sponsoring these races, all those people who have benefited from this racetrack, do your due diligence and open up the track somewhere and look to see if you can preserve it somewhere else. Because if the community support is there, it doesn't have to come from the government.
Yeah. I think I have, 27th. It was announced in the January 27th issue of the Daily News. Tyrone's appointment. Now that could mean she was appointed before the meeting and the Daily News was slow. Yeah. Well, we'll follow this rather closely, and the unfortunate thing is that the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has never done anything right so long as I've been following it. Never. So you can't expect them to do it right this time. Now, if Toft is gone, I wonder who the lucky lawyer is that took that one over. You remember it was Chris Finney before, back during the days of the certificate of title fiasco, Jose, remember that? Yeah, what was her name? Finney. Yeah, it'll come to me in a minute. Come to me 10 minutes after the show is over. It starts with a C, I think. So a very interesting story. Okay, next on the card we have Roundtable versus Department of Education. And this really ties back in to the first matter we handled. Duane is critical of raises announced by the governor. And this is just more fuel on that particular fire. And this is how it goes. We've failed our students. School officials, lawmakers talk poor condition for kids. A dilapidated gym and other major issues at GW have deprived students of a proper high school experience, said GW Principal Dexter Fulo. Dangerous structural issues closed the gym in September 2021, just as students were returning to full-time in-person instruction after the Wuhan virus shutdowns. Graduating seniors haven't been able to use it properly since they were freshmen, Fulo said. It's been 4 years since our students had their quarterly pep rallies, their gecko production, and all other social activities that make GW great. Now, when you're only in high school for 3 years, Jose, 4 years is a long damn time. I think maybe for the longest years of my life were the years I was in high school, for the best years. But it took forever. Try to move so slow when you're young, you know. Yeah. Our students speak with a longing that they did not fully get the experience they deserve. Fulo told lawmakers during an hours-long roundtable between the Department of Ed and the legislature's Committee on Education. Once again, taking the word roundtable and stretching it into a shape that I don't recognize. How do you have a roundtable between the Department of Ed and the legislature's Committee on Education? Besides the gym, 5 classrooms have been closed due to asbestos, mold, and fire damage due to arson. Out of 220 air conditioning units at the school, only 124 work. Students have been shuffled around to maximize classroom space and have had to share gyms with Father Duenas Memorial School and the University of Guam. While the roundtable was meant to be confined to issues at GW, it quickly turned into a dissection of the failing state of local schools. The situation at GW was not unique, nor was GW in the worst condition among local schools. Education Committee Chair Senator Chris Barnett said, "I'll just say it, I believe we failed our schools. We failed our students." Phil Tovis, facilities manager for DOE, said that designs for the repair of the GW gym have already been completed, but contractors bidding on the construction contract were flagged by the Attorney General, stalling the bid. The project is now out to bid for a 3rd time, Tovis said. "I would say in about 4 months we should have a good working contract, and construction time was always called out at 90 days for this project." Barnett noted that school procurement has been has been a complaint at numerous schools, whose requests for repairs and maintenance get sent to DOE central office, where apparently it goes to die. According to Guam DOE's acting deputy administrator for finance, Franklin Cooper Nurse, besides going through the AG's office for review, legal counsel for the education department does its own internal review of procurement documents. Is it the most efficient process? Possibly not, Cooper Nurse told Barnett. But it's a process we're kind of embedded in and operating through. So yes, I think that we can improve efficiency. Acting Superintendent of Education Judy Wonpat-Ten said she's trying to make a top-down approach to hold officials in the school system accountable during the 5 months that she'll be leading them. Currently, $76 million of a remaining $121 million in American Rescue Plan money is slated to be used for repairs. Wonpat said she wants to reprogram as much money as possible to fix facilities. The Army Corps of Engineers previously assessed the cost of fixing the schools at $90 million, but that's since ballooned to $110 million and $140 million, she said. Hiring is open for 35 maintenance positions to try to keep up with minor repairs, Wonpat said. "We used to have like 300 maintenance people at DOE. Now we're down to 25. Maintenance contracts will also have to be reassessed. Guam has DOE has a contract for pest maintenance, for example. But I asked how many times do they come, and to my surprise, I was very disappointed. Yes, it's once a year. Well, that's not so bad, Jose. If the pests, the fleas and the skeeters and the chiggers, if they only come once a year, that's not so bad." Is that what she meant?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe it's the pest control guys.
There you go.
My bad. Simon Sanchez, Southern High, and Ocean View have all recently come under fire for observable pest infestations. Wonpat said she plans to meet with the Office of the Governor and government agencies to see what support they can be given to the schools. And then Joanne Brown says, this is tough. She told Wonpat, adding that officials were providing the same old story about problems in the system. Despite a shrinking school population, down 26,000 from 36,000 several years ago. Education and school facilities only seem to be getting worse. Wanpat, who had been leading DOE for 4 days as of Tuesday, said she couldn't account for what happened under past leaders. Cooper nurse responding to Brown said there was a perfect storm of a lack of maintenance personnel, aging facilities, and $110 million worth of delayed repairs. Only about 70 maintenance positions are currently funded for all of the island schools. I know what we could do, Jose. Let's give them a raise. If we only have 70 and we give them a 22% raise, 22% of 70, that would take us up close to 100.
Almost.
Yeah. That we're paying for.
Just throw money at it.
Yeah. Let's see, going on here. J.F. Kennedy, by contrast, has $2 million for facilities and a maintenance as part of a school lease and is in relatively good condition. Can we get the local budget of $2 million a year for the 36 other schools? We don't have that financial support. It's a general government of Guam problem, said Education Board member Peter Alexis Hadda. It does not have a preventive maintenance program. Well, Peter Alexis Hadda, that's why you're on the board. Board member Maria Gutierrez added that the board wanted more authority over operations at DOE as they've been unable to rein in actions of school systems management. Was this during the 10 years that we had the greatest superintendent of all time on board?
That was the big elephant in the room listening to this.
Yeah.
Is that we had a long-term superintendent before.
Yeah.
This is his legacy then.
Yeah, this is his legacy, but you would never know it.
Maria kept reiterating that operations is not their purview and kept pushing it off to the rest of the people that are in the room.
Right. And she said, Maria goes on to say a large amount of what she thought was unnecessary administrative hiring. Board member Ron McNinch agreed and added that lawmakers, Wanpat 10, and the board should take all hands on deck approach, sit down and iron out whatever the policy fixes were needed at the schools. Senator Tom Fisher, after several hours, suggested that lawmakers put together a special investigative committee to tackle specific issues at local schools because we simply can't continue to do this over and over again. It's insane. We've got kids out there that need to be educated. And then we have Barnett's bill that says, that was the bill that says that that schools have to meet standard by the beginning of school this year. No more suspension of the inspection process, and that's a good idea. I got to put my own 2 cents worth in. We've got to go to Wrigley Field, and we had a caller who, Mark Cruz.
Yeah, Mark. Well, first he wanted to say that land that you can see that's being whatever it's called. Raised belongs to a private industry, Pacific International Incorporated, and not part of the racetrack, and it does extend all the way to the end of the racetrack.
Okay.
Yeah, and he wanted to reiterate that that's private.
How does he know?
He just says he knows. I know that he's a resident of Jigo, but I'm not sure. He said that there's a family, Kramer, that owns that, and he might know the Kramers. Yeah. Yeah. But that's where that is. But again, where that land is and where the raceway is that the line that's blurred that they're talking about?
Yeah, and when it comes to land tenure, I would expect something more than I just know. You know.
Okay.
It may very well be.
Yeah.
Are there any boundary markers? Are there fences, as you see in a map? Whatever. And then the other thing touched on in Matt Weiss's story was that the Raceway Federation gave a construction company an easement across the property perhaps it's that company to get to the property.
Well, he did mention that also.
Mhm.
And your friend of mine, Mike Borhow, was allegedly gave that permission because it's an easement and gave permission to whoever to be able to use it. It's an old bull cart road, I guess. That's, like almost every single road here on Guam is a former
Almost
bull.
every square inch of island.
It was a bull cart road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions, but not a lot of documentation to be cited. And I think that's what needs to be done, not the emotional stuff.
Yeah, not the demonstrations.
Yeah, not the demagoguery.
Yeah, how much we love auto racing and that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay. So going back to what's going on in the Department of Education. Yeah, let's head for Wrigley Field first.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003 or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Sorry, tempo gagi hami isla tanota. Nagatsun hiri tempo ipesino intingo. West Attic Banco, Sabeca Civision. Bank Pacific, the Ocean of Promise, Happy Holly.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a little personal story. I know a little bit about the Department of Education. I was the director of education once upon a time. And of course, I was a senator. And one time when I was a senator, we had a budget hearing, and the then director of education, we used to call him the director of education. Now he is the superintendent of education, but we've never had a director of the Department of Education. We've never had a superintendent of the Department of Education, contrary to what you see in the papers. That's not what they're called. It's like we don't have at the Pentagon, we don't have a secretary of the Department of Defense. It just doesn't work that way. But we had this budget hearing, and the then director of education came in and said, this isn't what we asked the administration to give us for our budget. It's several $1 million less than what we asked for. However, I understand the government's financial position, and, as a director of education, we're willing to carry our share of the load and make the sacrifice. I let him say that, and then I stopped and I said, Mr. X, you're the director of education. You're not the director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research. It's your job to get the resources that you need for your department. Your only concern should be the kids that you're supposed to be educated. So what I expect to see is not you making apologies for the administration. I expect to see you come over here and pound on the table and say, you've got to give us $300 million if you want us to educate your kids. That's what I want to see. I actually said that, Jose. And that's what I would expect from all of these. Everyone seems to operate on the proposition, first of all, you identify the problem, and then you identify the cause of the problem, and then you're done. Yeah.
There was this weird sense of low morale at that meeting. I don't know if you picked that up also. I did my job, and that's all I can do. And then there was a lot of word salad going on, too.
Yeah. So like Judy Wanpat 10, rather than asking for help, again, you got to help us, Governor. you got to help us and go public with it and saying, and this is what I need from public. I told the story the other day about how Lou Pangilinan, as Joe Addis chief of staff, pulled everybody with a construction capability into a meeting on a Friday night. And we worked a miracle over the weekend to get those schools up to shape and opening on Monday morning. But it doesn't happen by accident. Somebody has to take charge. People has to be someone or somebody's have to be forceful. And in the process, you're going to ruffle some feathers. So you got to decide, do you want to be effective or do you want to be a really nice person and let the situation walk all over you? And that's what we've got. It's like one thing Juan Pat said, or one of the people in this article said, this has been going on for years. And the principal at GW, 4 years and no gym. I never even knew what his name was until today. Where was he? Yeah. Well,
even the whole deep clean conversation they had, I was so frustrated. Like, why was this happening, right?
Yeah.
We were just waiting.
Yeah.
We were just waiting. Start demanding. Stop waiting for these people that we're paying to do things.
Exactly. Because, for kids, the times that they miss, they never get back. They can never make that up. Spending 4 years without a gym, think of the poor kid that, starts high school as a really good basketball player for his age, starts high school and say, man, I'm going to play for the Geckos. And, maybe if I'm really, really good, I can play basketball in college. I love basketball. He winds up shooting hoops out in his backyard because there's no gym at the high school. And it's just so sad. Okay, so I don't have a caller here. I'm going to go next to Candid versus the Post. And you recall that Candid News and Troy, by the way, you notice Troy's got a nice smile there in the Rogues Gallery, right? So the Rogues Gallery is worth watching every day, if for no other reason, just to see Troy Torres' handsome face up there, right? Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't sneak in a Blue Star shirt.
Well, I offered him, but I think he thinks that he's prouder of his tailgater shirt than his Blue Star shirt. Maybe it's the brotherhood aspect.
There you go.
Part of the Tall Tales brotherhood. So Troy was the guy who dug through search warrants that had been unsealed at the district court and found out some really interesting stuff about who may very well have been dirty in the police department and the government. And he did an expose. And after that, there was nothing but silence for about 5 days. And then KUAM picked it up and started to run with it. And now the Post has finally decided to do something with it. But if it hadn't been for Troy doing the initial heavy lifting, I suspect that none of this would ever come to light. And this is the Post article, said, captain's name in drug investigation. Now, captains here refer to police officers who hold a rank. In the police department, you can be a PO1, a PO2, a PO3, a sergeant, a staff sergeant. Although they don't call them staff sergeants, they call them something else I can't remember, and then lieutenant and captain. So when they're talking about captains here, they're not talking about the guy in the real estate appraisal business whose name is Nick Captain. It's not him. I don't want Nick Captain to think I'm libeling him or something. It's not him. You don't know who Nick Captain is?
I do not.
He's got a shop down on the corner of Pope Street and Route 4, right across from close to the cathedral, across over from the cathedral, right? Yeah, it used to be a snack bar, and he's taken it over now. He's in the real estate business, so I would describe it like this: Nick Captain and his lieutenants sergeant their resources. in such a manner that it's not necessary to use corporal punishment in private to get the results they want.
You got a regiment there.
Yeah. Okay, here's how the article goes. Federal investigators believe John Boom Montanonia, a former police officer, told paid a police captain in order to receive sensitive information related to GPD investigations which benefited a local meth operation. Recently unsealed records in the district court detail an investigation into Montanonia, a retired police officer who was indicted in 2019 in connection to jury tampering and a conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. According to Post files, Montanonia's charges relate to giving drug traffickers, which include Audrey Wolford, Vincent Rios, and Eric Aponic, who allegedly distributed methamphetamine on Guam, protection from law enforcement investigation in exchange for a fee. The unsealed records not only reveal the fees range from $15,000 to $30,000, but also that Montanonia's contacted GPD to assist in keeping drug traffickers undetected was his cousin, Captain Kenneth Montanonia. Kenneth Montanonia was the chief of the Criminal Investigation Division, was responsible for overseeing the Mandania Drug Task Force. A transcript of text messages and conversations with witnesses and confidential informants show the scheme being investigated by federal authorities included alleged misconduct that occurred between 2016 and 2017 during the previous gubernatorial administration. According to FBI Special Agent Patrick Ernst, who applied for 2 search warrants in the cases only recently unsealed, he believed Wolford admitted to a confidential source that her close relationship with John Montanonia, that's also known as Boom, who was connections with powerful people like the then governor and police chief, benefits her alleged drug business. So she said, I'm tight with the chief and the governor. That's why my business is doing so well. I believe Wolford is further stating that members of the Mandania are afraid to target Wolford's drug trafficking activities because Wolford's close relationship with John Montanonia. Wolford is further stating that if Wolford's drug trafficking activities draw law enforcement attention, Mandania members will notify John Montanonia and ask him to caution Wolford. Ernest attested in his warrant application. The Montanonia cousins are alleged to have worked together to gather and possibly utilize sensitive law enforcement information. The unsealed search warrant additionally showed text messages between the two discussing details of drug investigations, which included vehicles and the person they were registered to, where surveillance would be set up and certain individuals who had been arrested. On January 16, Captain Montanonia, Ken Montanonia, texted Boom Montanonia, "You still owe me, ha, ha, ha," the records show. Ernst stated he believed John Montanonia made payments to Ken. I believe that John requests sensitive law enforcement information from Ken, and some of the information requested by John pertains to drug investigations, Ernst attested. The FBI special agent alleged the information was relayed over text messages and very likely phone calls. Another individual named in the documents was Captain Kim Santos, a former spokesperson for the department, and her text conversations with John Montanonia. A transcript showed John Montanonia requested police records for 2 individuals, which Santos responded by asking for the pair's social security numbers. After Montanonia provided the numbers, Santos instructed him to pick up documents at GPD's record section. Ernst stated he believed the requests were for sensitive law enforcement information. The FBI agent alleged to the court there was probable cause to believe John Montanonia, that's Boom, 1, solicits drug dealers to pay him protection or for information pertaining to law enforcement activities. 2, provided sensitive law enforcement information to individuals he knows to be drug dealers. And 3, interfered with law enforcement actions to assist drug dealers in continuing trafficking operations. The Post asked GPD spokesperson Berlin Savella. Now, how could Berlin Savella, the spokesperson, how could you believe anything she said? You remember her, Jose?
Yeah, she's a very bad Parker.
Yeah.
How dare she?
Yeah, and they got her for illegal parking. She went to court and she lost at court. So you can't. I don't know if she's trustworthy at all, with a heavy rap like that following her around.
I mean, no police officer goes through the process.
Absolutely not. When she was asked about unsealed court documents, she responded, "We're looking into the allegations. At this time, the Chief Ignacio, has not made a determination as to the recent documents provided by GPD's legal section." So at least the chief didn't tell us what he knew from the get-go this time. Now, the interesting thing about the GPD legal section, Jose, you know how many lawyers there are in the GPD legal section?
How many?
None.
Oh.
It's just cops. They're the guys that screw up your sunshine request when you send them over there. They did have a lawyer at one time, but the legislature abolished the position. Now, again, that's something I know a little bit about myself. I was legal advisor for GPD for over 3 years, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And from my experience, if there's any place that needs a lawyer, it's the police department.
Well, simple First Amendment violations that occurred years ago.
Yeah.
They need somebody.
Really. The Post also attempted to contact Santos. She didn't respond. John Boom Montanonia is set to appear in federal court February 16. His attorney, Joaquin J. Arreola Jr., declined to comment on the recently unsealed records. Boom's current charges stem from allegedly obstructing a jury in the trial of Raymond Martinez and Juanita Mosier in 2018. Martinez and Mosier's case was eventually transferred to California, and after serving 4 years in federal prison, they were charged in the district court in November of last year. Very interesting story. Then we have another story on KUAM. On callers, I'll get to you in just a second. A postal employee named Ryan San Nicolas was also listed in these search warrants. The details listed search warrants recently unsealed. The warrant named Ryan San Nicolas, a postal service carrier who works at the main facility for his alleged part in the drug scheme. He's been employed at the post office since July 2015. The warrant states that investigators uncovered San Nicolas was allegedly involved in a conspiracy to facilitate transfer of drugs to a drug dealer named Ananich. Okay, let's break for let's head for Churchill Downs, and I got a couple eager callers here, and I've got Repeat and another Joe in the green room.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003, or visit LaderaTowerGuam.com or GuamProperties.com.
SecurityTitle.com.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dedido, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, I see Bonnie Suba here on Facebook saying McConnell wore a Ukraine flag colors for his necktie. Well, here's an interesting tidbit, Jose. The colors of the flag of Ukraine and Sweden are the same colors. And next time Frenchie talks to us, he'll tell you that there's a sort of a particular relationship between Sweden and Ukraine, and this is not just a coincidence. So maybe Mitch McConnell was wearing the flag of Sweden. After all, McConnell's a good Swedish name, right? No, it's not. Okay, so I've got Repeat who wants to talk about government operations a couple times. And then we've got another Joe who wants to talk about Mylan's injunction petition. So good afternoon, Repeat.
Good afternoon. Let's save the government operations questions for another time, because I read that same article that you read regarding Boom and Tenonia, and I got a couple things to say about it, if you don't mind.
Please do.
Yeah, so I can read between the lines of all that information, and leads me to wonder, whether Special Agent Ernst was a newbie, because a lot of those things in there that was part of the affidavit were really non-starters. Like, for instance, the documents that was requested, those are requests for police clearances. People ask cops all the time if they can hook them up with getting a police clearance prepared so that when they go down there, it's ready and waiting, and they don't have to wait in line like everybody else. So that was for that. The other thing is that cops use CIs all the time and make them falsely believe that they're protected, but they always end up burning CIs. And so Wolford and whatever, and I'm not privy to these guys because I wasn't part of any of this investigation, but all the talk that's being talked about sounds just like cops playing their CIs and making them believe, things. And then that's probably what Boom was doing, and he was extorting money out of them, making them believe that he had connections or was protecting them. That's just a theory I have. But the other thing is, with this whole thing, this all pales in comparison to Roy Cabakang. When we took down Roy Cabakang way back when, we confiscated houses from him, drugs, guns, automobiles, so many assets, millions of dollars. And so we found out under the Roy Cabakang investigation, he had cops, customs, port police, airport police, postal workers, everybody was on the take.
I remember Roy Cabakang, yeah. So
yeah.
Let me pose this question to you, Pete. Now, these search warrant affidavits, of course, the cop has to be able to show the judge that there's probable cause that a crime may have been committed and that this person committed the crime in order for the judge to issue the search warrant. So let's say that you're exactly right, that that's exactly what the affidavit showed, but still, would it be a newbie FBI agent who takes those at face value and submits them to the judge, or somebody who's judge, pretty skillful at securing a warrant?
Yeah, and then the judge themselves would be one to scrutinize. But at the end of the day, a lot of these affidavits are going off of the word of folks who are supposed to be known quantities. But most of the time, these folks that are providing information are folks that, are not so credible themselves. And I know for a fact, having played the game before, we string along CIs and we hold off on charging them, but we eventually charge them 100%. Right?
I understand, but my point is this, that assuming the FBI FBI agent wants to get a wiretap search warrant, so he takes what you're characterizing as typical cop talk, puts it in his affidavit, and is successful in getting his search warrant, even if he possibly knows that the cops aren't really being serious. Is that a possibility?
Oh yeah, that's very possible. And like I said, we give our CIs, or I used to give my CIs a false sense of confidence, and so that I can get more information and activity out of them, doing controlled buys and the like. And then eventually the relationship has to end, and it always ends with the CI getting burned. Yeah. And they're not smart enough to realize that. They're going to play the game for a little bit, but at the end of the day, the house always wins.
Okay, well, thanks, Repeat. I got to say goodbye to you, and goodbye to another Joe, and goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The president assesses the State of the Union. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, calling America unbowed and unbroken in Tuesday's speech to a joint session of Congress.
President Biden pointed to legislative accomplishments over the past 12 months to stress bipartisanship in a newly divided Congress.
Time and again, Democrats and Republicans came together to defend a stronger and safer Europe. It came together to pass once in a generation infrastructure law.
But the president says the job is not finished as he laid out new proposals on prescription drug prices, immigration reform, an assault weapons ban, and corporate tax increases. The president travels to Wisconsin today as part of an effort to grow support for his economic agenda.
Fox's Jared Halperin at the Capitol. In the Republican response, Arkansas's Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders said she couldn't believe much of anything she heard in the president's speech.
Biden and the Democrats have failed you. They know it, and you know it. And it's time for a change. Tonight, let us reaffirm our commitment to a timeless American idea that government exists not to rule the people, but to serve the people.
The president drew laughs from the chamber when he said the country would continue to need oil at least for another decade. In Turkey and Syria, the number of people killed in Monday's murderous earthquake has now surpassed 8,000 and certain to grow. 2 highly specialized search teams from the U.S. due to arrive on site today.
The teams based in Fairfax County, Virginia, and in Los Angeles County, California, are made up of about 80 people each and include structural engineers, soldiers, paramedics, and handlers with search dogs, all specifically trained in earthquake response.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. Wall Street higher Tuesday. The Dow up 265 points. NASDAQ added 226. America is listening to Fox News.